Good evening, everyone. I'm Will Kane in for Martha McCallum, and this is the story. Tonight, President Trump is at Camp David with his family after appearing before cameras at the White House and offering his most candid assessment yet of the election outcome, railing against, quote, fraudulent votes and fraudulent voting, all the while announcing plans to rally for Republicans in Georgia in races that will seal the fate of majority control of the Senate.
Maybe I'll go twice. It's very important that we win those races. These are two great people. And I just want to tell my people, don't be disappointed yet, because this race is far from over. But I'm going on Saturday night. I'll be in Georgia. We're going to have a tremendous crowd.
President Trump urging his supporters to get out and vote for Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Perdue tweeting in response, "I'm proud to have Donald Trump's support in this race. We need everyone to get out and vote for me and Kelly Loeffler on January 5th. In moments, our panelists here on the political power the president will hold in the coming months. Also tonight, George Papadopoulos, who says he hopes he's the next in line to receive a pardon from the president. And former UFC champ Tito Ortiz is here to talk about his latest win, but not in the ring this time. It's in the political arena. Plus, stunning hypocrisy from former President Barack Obama and a rebuke of would-be authoritarians from the Supreme Court. But we kick off things tonight with Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institute and author of The Case for Trump, and Jessica Tarlov, head of research at Bustle.com, her digital group, and a Fox News contributor. Congressman, I'd like to start with you. The president today said that if electoral votes went to Joe Biden, he would concede and he would leave the White House. But he made it clear, Congressman, that he believes this election was rigged, that it was a fraud. Polls suggest many Americans agree with him, but the courts as of yet do not. So the question remains, will he be able to prove it, Congressman?
There's a difference between being able to prove fraud and then being able to obtain the remedies that would decertify election results. And I think the president has been pretty clear that he wants to expose the fraud, not just as a consequence of the 2020 election, but to try to ensure we have more integrity in our elections going forward. Take Georgia, for example, where we're about to have this high-impact special election. The consent decree that Stacey Abrams rather effectively litigated the state of Georgia into has dramatically reduced the amount of absentee ballots that have gotten rejected as a consequence of bad signatures. That number used to be 3.5% getting rejected and falling down to 0.3%. That creates the opportunity for a lot more of those ballots that seem to go Joe Biden's way.
Jessica, it does seem that everyone, Republican or Democrat, would have a vested interest in exposing any potential irregularities in this election. And whether or not the president receives the remedies he seeks in these court cases, isn't that a laudable effort to ensure that our political system is honest and on the up and up?
Absolutely. I'm fully supportive of that. And people like Chris Krebs, who was fired by the president just last week, are in support of that as well. There are many officials who've come out and said that this is the freest and fairest election that we've had in American history. Irregularities should be examined, but we know now that we are moving to a model where more people will be voting by mail. And I believe it's 9 states do this anyway with regularity. And there's no reason that we can't emulate that in elections to come. But to the congressman's comments about what President Trump is after, he is after subverting the will of the American people. He wanted to stop the count in states where he was ahead, demanding the count continued in states where he's behind. He wants to disenfranchise black voters in urban areas, but wants to tout his 18% support with black men when it suits him. He can't have it both ways. Joe Biden won this election by an almost unprecedented margin. We're talking about Obama 08 levels. And the president needs to concede, aid the transition as he's committed to, and make sure that he is out by January 20th when President-elect Joe Biden is inaugurated. I
want to get to Victor Davis Hanson in just a moment, but Congressman, I'll let you respond to what Jessica said.
Well, the president hasn't done anything to bar the transition of power, and I do think that the legal process and also the political process to uncover fraud, to enact better laws, ought to unite all Americans. So there's no disagreement there. And, you know, there are very small margins in some of these places like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and there are a lot of Republicans who don't understand why we went to bed with the president having leads at times in the hundreds of thousands in these states, and you wake up to see ballots seemingly willed into existence. And while you at the same time see observers excluded and you see signature matches seemingly ignored, it raises questions that I think we've got to answer through the political process and through the legal process.
This news just in, Milwaukee County has certified its vote for Joe Biden. Victor Davis Hanson, I want to bring you in now, please. I know you've written this. You believe that the president is at a crossroads. His political future or the power that he wields in the coming months is rapidly approaching a crossroads.
Yeah, I think that the congressman's right. He has a legitimate right and responsibility to question any irregularities that come up, and he's doing so. And that's not new. I remember Al Gore remembered 36 days. He didn't concede in 2000 till December 13th. That's about 2.5 weeks from now. And remember in 2016, it's tomorrow, November 28th, when Jill Stein, as a surrogate for Hillary Clinton, sued to overturn the election in 3 key states. Hillary Clinton, remember, and Hollywood people supported subverting the Electoral College because we heard nonstop television ads urging the electors not to follow their constitutionally mandated responsibilities. And of course, Hillary Clinton, by January, was saying the election was stolen. She joined the La Resistance and tried to oppose it based on the fraudulent dossier. And then 4 years later, in August of this year, she said that the election had been stolen and Joe Biden should not concede under, quote, any circumstances. So there's a history of acrimony, and what the president has to understand is that he's doing things legitimately, and then there's going to be a deadline, and that's when the electors meet on December 14th. And I think he's got to avoid conspiracy theories that he won a landslide by 70%. He didn't. But there's nothing wrong with saying this was an unusual year to massive mail-in and early voting, and we have to examine discrepancies, mathematical, statistical anomalies, all of that. But there's going to be a date when the electors are going to vote, and after that it becomes very problematic. And that's why he, I think wisely, is going down to Georgia. He's going to try to win those 2 seats. And then I think in the House race in 2022, it's going to be a whole different game. I think it's going to, the future bolds well if he doesn't press it beyond the electoral voting and he doesn't get into the conspiracy theory. And I think he's avoided that so far.
Jessica, to Victor's point that many of the claims made by the left today are completely in contrast to claims they made just 4 years ago. Every claim seems to come with some burden of hypocrisy, whether or not it was Stacey Abrams claiming fraudulent voting in her bid to become Georgia's governor, or claims that the 2016 was illegitimate, there was Russian interference, or an MSNBC host who in 2016 suggested maybe the electors should be appointed by state legislators, not following the will of the vote. Every single claim to move on, as you said earlier, seems to be in opposition to the claims made 4 years ago.
So I obviously don't speak for every liberal in America, but I will do my best to address the points that you made. First and foremost, speaking to Hillary Clinton, who was the one who lost to Donald Trump by 77,000 votes, she conceded the night of the election, asked him, which he was very kind to give her, for a few hours to compose herself and prepare, and then came out the next morning with her husband by her side and talked about the fact that she had lost and Donald Trump had won, and that we had to work together. To state what Stacey Abrams did, I have been critical in the past of her refusal to say, I concede, but she did acknowledge that Governor Kemp was going to become governor, that he would be governor-elect, and she has worked her butt off to get people registered in Georgia and to provide us with a great boon and being personally responsible for our win there for Joe Biden and registering about 800,000 people. And what an MSNBC host said, I don't follow all of it, but there are people out there who have said things that I don't necessarily agree with. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't lead by example this time around.
That's completely understandable as you speak for yourself. It just seems like it's run-of-the-mill, doing business as usual 4 years ago, and akin to acts of insurrection some 4 years later when it comes from the left. Congressman, I have to end with you, but I would like to ask you something that Victor brought up, and that is the president has said everyone in Georgia should get out and vote. There are others, like one of his attorneys, Lynn Wood, that said conservatives should boycott the Georgia vote. Where are you on this? Should conservatives get out and vote for David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler?
Absolutely. Senators Perdue and Loeffler are all that stand between our great nation and socialism, and so I hope that in and of itself is sufficiently motivating. But we don't have as united a movement in Georgia as I wish we did. I think that's the consequence of poor political leadership from Governor Kemp, and so, you know, we've got to go and fight with the team we've got, and it's my hope that we'll see a different type of electorate and a different type of outcome in the special election that's coming up in January.
And it sounds like the president will be down there campaigning for both of those senators. Jessica Tarlov, Victor Davis Hanson, Congressman Matt Gaetz, thank you all so much for your time today.
This is Congressman Matt Gaetz. If you like that video, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and join us on our daily podcast, Hot Takes with Matt Gaetz, on your favorite podcast listening platform.